Hi everyone. We continue our month-long series of Titanic book reviews. And as we're approaching the end of the month, it's quite fitting to conclude on a book that looks at the afterlife of Titanic. And by that I mean specifically the wreck. And so, today's review is going to be this book. The Discovery of the Titanic, the 1997 edition. This particular book comes at an interesting time in the historiography of Titanic. This particular edition was published in 1997, just as James Cameron's blockbuster movie was about to hit screens, and launch a new wave of fans and coverage about this iconic liner and wreck. Also, as you've probably seen by now as well, you'll see images taken that show photos of the book between the covers so that you get a better idea of what it's like on the inside. This edition is a republication of the original Discovery of the Titanic, which takes in additional information that was gathered during the expeditions that occurred around James Cameron's expeditions to the Titanic. They were separate. These expeditions were done by Ballard and were done separate to James Cameron's. James Cameron was more for filming the scenes underwater. So just to clarify there, they are separate. Ballard's research focused on mapping the wreck, understanding the site, and understanding what was preserved as it was in 1997. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me take you back into context. What this book is composed mainly is a discussion of how the search came to be, how the wreck was found, and the methods that were used to discover the wreck. And as you can see up along here, there's a very quaint 80s feel to some of the technology. Not that the 80s were that far away, and while the technology may have improved somewhat, the methods are still as relevant today as it was then. For most Titanic enthusiasts, the interest in this book will lie in the second half, where the wreck is given a comprehensive review, and we get to see some stunning images of the wreck as it was in 1985 and 1997. The highlights of this book include these beautiful fold-outs, and the one that you can see next to us is a mosaic of the bow section with details below showing points of reference. There's also another beautiful fold-out which should be appearing up here now, showing the state of the wreck, what's still in existence and what's broken away. This is critical in understanding not only the wreck of the Titanic, but also how the wreck itself has evolved. Factoring in that this book is now a good 25 or so years old, and we now know that the wreck has advanced and is beginning to decay even more, it's critical in seeing its condition as it was in the late 90s. I mean, as we can see, there are elements, particularly with the captain's bathtub, that are now gone, or at least have been covered by wreckage as the wreck continues to further pass on from one form to another. Over the past 2 decades, the wreck has been extensively studied, and we have a greater understanding, in particular, of the debris field, with greater understanding in how the ship broke, its disintegration process, and indeed its journey towards the seabed, and as maritime archaeologists would call it, the site formation process of the wreck itself. So, while this book shows our understanding of what things were in 1997, it is also valuable because it has a comprehensive coverage of the wreck from the bow to the stern to the debris field as we knew it in 1997. the past 2 decades, those expeditions have uncovered more information, but because they have been done by various organizations, it's hard to, particularly with copyright purposes, it's hard to accumulate all those findings and all those photos and all those different groupings together into one volume. But we do have this book, and this book is comprehensive in that regard. The bow of the wreck is covered in detail, the stern of the wreck is covered in detail, and indeed everything in between is covered, with some beautiful selection of photos, diagrams, illustrations, you name it. It is all there. The wreck of the Titanic will continue to decay. It is just a natural process of everything, really. Wrecks will ultimately return to iron ore, and as Titanic continues this process, we have this beautiful record authored by the man who discovered the very wreck. While the various expeditions of the last 2 decades have meant that this book is now somewhat dated, it is still a comprehensive and beautifully illustrated look at the wreck of the Titanic, from bow to stern, the debris field, and everything in between. Not only that, it also includes in detail just how the wreck was discovered. So for all those elements, this book is a for captain's hats. Titanic enthusiasts will adore the artwork, the photos, and indeed the beautiful cross-sections and fold-outs that give a greater understanding of the condition of the wreck as it was in 1997. Tech enthusiasts will also enjoy understanding just how the wreck was discovered using 1980s technology. All in all, this is a wonderful, comprehensive package, and it is a fitting epitaph to the story of the Titanic and a beautiful catalogue of that ship's wreck. Now, having said that, and with May just around the corner, with books about the Lusitania and airships also on the horizon, there is still a shipload of other Titanic books that I have in my collection, and if there's any that you would like to be reviewed, please let me know in the comments below, and indeed any other shipwreck or maritime books that you would like reviewed, let me know. And if I've got them in my comprehensive library, I will be sure to make a review of them for you. So, until next time, enjoy and happy reading, everyone.